Morals. We all know we should have them, but what are they? Are they the same for everyone, regardless of age or gender or religion or country of origin? Can someone's morals be wrong? How do we even know what is right or wrong? Is it based on personal experience or a collective experience? There are so many questions to answer, and many people trying to find these answers. Morals are based on core values. James Franklin, head coach at Penn State, identified what some of these core values might or should be: a positive attitude, good work ethic, competitiveness, sacrifice, love, and integrity. But determining what the morals are is just the first step. They are nothing but ideas without the ability of moral reasoning. The environment you grow up in affects your moral reasoning, but knowing your core values makes this moral reasoning easier. Moral reasoning helps us resolve conflict and leads us to action based on the core values. Phil Temple is one person searching for the answer to questions about moral reasoning. This guy works with men who have neurodevelopmental disorders, who have committed a crime, so he knows a thing or two about moral reasoning and what happens when it goes wrong or is absent. There are several things that are essential to develop the skill of moral reasoning. The level of a person's moral sensitivity predicts the ability to see ethical dilemmas that arise. The next thing you need is moral judgment, or the ability to know what has to be done when faced with an ethical or moral dilemma. However, these are useless without the moral motivation and personal commitment to accept the responsibility for an ethical outcome. This is where many people fail. It is not always easy to do what is morally right, even after we have identified it. Your moral character is what comes into play next, or in other words, not just taking the easy way out. So these skills are pretty important, right? So shouldn't this important life skill be taught along with our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s? Isn't this skill as essential as solving a quadratic equation or knowing what Hammurabi's code is? Without this skill, we will end up with a society that does not think deeply about the suffering of others. It seems pretty clear that this should be taught at some point. We don't all have an ideal upbringing that instills the importance of acting on these core values. We should be teaching this early and consistently, starting when children begin school and continuing. We can't wait until it's too late, after the person has done something wrong. This can't be taught after something like another school shooting. We must act now and teach the difference between right and wrong, virtuous and vicious. This intentional thinking will benefit everyone and just make the world a better place. We have to start somewhere to make the world a kinder place. We have a moral obligation. I see a lot of barriers to teaching this because there is so much debate over what core values are. A place to start is to analyze the norms and moral truths of different societies. Once we decide this, how do we decide what to do or how to act based on these? Franklin is off to a good start in reconciling just what these core values are and teaching it to college and high school students. Can they be universal? How you perceive yourself is often a self-directing prophecy. Positive thinking can lead us to a positive life. Let people know how much you love them. Love is universal and is powerful. Say thanks. Appreciation matters. These, along with a positive attitude, a good work ethic, and sacrifice, will help a lot in moral reasoning. He lists one more that I don't completely agree with, and that is competitiveness. I can see the importance of this on an individual basis, but in terms of core values, I think that they should be more society-centered. Know who you are, and you are on your way to success in moral reasoning. Or are you? See, there is something big standing in the way, and that is the ego, which leads into part 2 of the module, narcissism. Pure narcissism is the ego getting in the way and keeping the focus on yourself instead of looking out to try and think about others, which is a necessary first step in moral reasoning. There are many factors that can go into the inability for someone to have moral reasoning. All too often, the ego gets in the way. Narcissism in the classic form would generally be considered a negative trait. Although not very healthy for the narcissist, it is more harmful for the people around them than the person themselves. We all know that person who is so consumed with themselves that they never actually hear what you're saying, and even after knowing the person for years, they still don't know the most basic things about your life. This is someone we definitely don't need in our lives. as a friend or a mate. They might be good looking and charming, but ultimately damaging to everybody around them. But luckily, the experts have devised a list we can follow to stay away from. Now, this might sound extreme, and I definitely don't think that people should go overboard in analyzing their next date. I mean, let's face it, there are not that many extreme narcissists out there, and the chances of the person sitting across the dinner table from you being one is slim. But it's good to know what to look out for. So remember, lack of empathy, sense of entitlement, grandiose view of oneself, dominance, lack of follow-through, putting other people down, and pushing boundaries. So how is narcissism tied to ethics? Why is this topic included in a section on moral reasoning? My best guess is that the struggle between doing what is right for yourself and doing what is right for society is part of the root of the problem of why we are unable to sometimes act in a way which we know is ethical. Human nature and evolution dictates that we watch out for ourselves first, so it's necessary to think of ourselves a lot in some capacity. And this part of human nature makes it very difficult to always act in an altruistic way. We often put ourselves and our ego first. Narcissism, in its most extreme form, could keep a person from making any type of ethically sound decision or action. This negative view of narcissism might not always be the case, though. Mary McGill sees a very different side to this narrative. She points out that while narcissism in itself is not a positive trait, we can apply intentional thought and develop a deeper understanding of what drives people to act in certain ways, and from there change our own inner narrative of how we think we should morally behave or react to certain situations. This extends our judgments of people. Every single person alive is going through their own journey and their own hardships. There is a reason behind pretty much every action that people take. A key ingredient in moral reasoning requires us to understand this and understand that there may be reasons behind certain behaviors that we do not see or understand. She deepens the thought process and points out that even when we think we know how to act or react, there is almost always a deeper level that we can go to and better understand people and what they're going through, and therefore act in a more ethical way. There is always room for improvement. What I'm realizing is that the journey to ethical behavior is an infinite one.